Alright, okay. Hey guys! So today I'm going to be sharing with you guys some information about neglect. I'll basically be discussing the relationship it has to mood disorders such as anxiety and depression, and we'll be discussing various peer-reviewed studies to back my claims to answer the pressing question about whether or not neglect, and specifically maternal neglect, if it perpetuates or influences the development of anxiety and depression. So, to start off, I want to ask, what is neglect in the first place? For some of the studies I researched, neglect was defined as the harming of one or more children through a serious lack of supervision or care. But in this particular study, this serious lack of supervision or care meant that human services was actually contacted. However, I want to expand on this definition and also include potential neglect, which another study refers to, that is very similar but does not solely characterize this as something to involve human services. And since I think it's important to have a solid definition before I move on to anything else, I decided to shorten the definition a little bit, but to encompass a little bit more, and I came up with the definition that neglect is the lack of supervision of care, both in terms of physical needs as well as mental needs. So, before I start or anything, I just want to add a disclaimer to express that the information that I'll be discussing is derived from various sources and that I will be paraphrasing much of my findings. I'll leave the sources in the description box below if you'd like to do more of your own research. But this video is mainly meant to explore the topic and to inform you guys about interesting information that will hopefully help you start a discussion to further understand those around you, yourself, and maybe even prevent future parents from neglecting their own children. With that said, let's just jump right into it. So, the majority of the studies that I found agreed that neglect does indeed at least somewhat influence the acquisition or development of behavioral disorders. However, the extent of which neglect has a direct impact is still kind of debated, but the overall consensus thus far is that neglect has the potential to lead to such disorders as depression and anxiety. In one study, mice were tested instead of humans to test the neurobiological responses of baby mice. One group of baby mice were put in a situation with a caring mother who nurtured the babies and fed them, bathed, I don't know how else to say it, but bathed them, and another group of mice of the same size were put into a situation without a caring mother, and though they were given the necessities of life, were left basically to their own left to their own disposal, I suppose. Anyway, aside from splitting up the baby mice at the beginning, the scientists didn't really do that much, but once the baby mice reached into adulthood, the scientists took brain scans of these mice to compare and contrast them, and the scans actually showed different levels of neuroinflammation in the baby mice who were neglected, which means that in general the neglected baby mice had a different brain makeup and different brain chemistry than the mice that were not neglected. But why does this even matter? Well, the scientists found that this neuroinflammation causes the inhibition of neurotransmitters like dopamine, and dopamine actually influences behavior, and having low dopamine levels is correlated or related to things such as mood disorders and specifically depression. So this study actually showed that neglect does indeed, I suppose, lead to such things as depression. Anywho, while the mice study shows us the neurobiological side of things, another source actually provides a more personalized perspective through the use of a continuous study where 100 mothers were chosen to participate, and they were basically chosen to participate in this study based on their potential to neglect. Once they were chosen, they were given a series of questionnaires before birth and then a number of times after birth until the child turned 10. The children also underwent a series of tests and were asked to complete questionnaires, but this only occurred, I believe, once they turned 10. And From the study, the researchers hoped to get a sense of how a mother's potential to neglect influences cognitive abilities and social behavior in children, and through the study found that mothers that ranked highest on the potential to neglect before birth had children who, in the future, were less adapted to social situations, oftentimes showing anxious behavior or being unable to express their emotions constructively, and had lower cognitive skills than those children who had mothers who did not rank as high on the potential to neglect scale. From these specific studies, along with other resources used, some of which discuss how even during adulthood the recollection of such neglectful behavior can influence depressive symptoms, it is relatively clear that there is a correlation between care from one's mother and social disorders like depression and anxiety. However, it would be interesting to see more studies that try to explain the differences between neglect and absence, because I feel like the first study kind of tested absence more than neglect, and the fact that it was mice also kind of messed me up a little bit. Like, I can see how the use of mice is often used to reflect how certain things would influence human beings, but I just thought it was interesting that they completely took the mother out of the equation. But anyway, there's really not that much information about both parents either. It's mostly maternal neglect. That's why it's mainly focused on maternal neglect. So it would definitely be interesting to see the different perspectives and different conditions of neglect. But yeah. Anyway, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you liked this content or if you found anything interesting, and feel free to leave a comment letting me know your thoughts. Thanks.